vengeance!
Welcome to another video, guys. Today I will start a new series giving you the best wild decks with an overview and a mulligan guide for each of them. And it's gonna be called Top 3 with Kris O Five. That doesn't make any sense. You don't make sense. You know what also doesn't make sense? Watching your videos without subscribing. Smooth. I will try to give you 3 of the greatest wild decks each time, but I will also mention what other good decks are out there too, so stay tuned till the end. As you know, it's a common belief that Wild is not a very affordable format, and that is somewhat true, but not really. True, not dusting your Wild collection so you can fund your standard decks could be pretty painful, but the thing is, if you craft a deck in Wild, you're probably gonna have it for a very long time, for 3, 4, 5 years, who knows. Whereas in Standard, plenty of the top decks survive only a couple of expansions most of the time. Also, you might be surprised that it's kind of enjoyable to play Wild, and there are plenty of cheap decks with which you can actually hit Legend with too. Not to mention that there are plenty of bad opponents there that are misplaying quite a lot. Anyway, now let's jump into the first deck, which, to no one's surprise, it's Secret Mage. Secret Mage has been a top tier deck for God knows how long now, and it got quite a few new tools with which it feels kind of fresh now. Even standard players pretty much know what the Secret Wild deck looks like, but with the new expansion we got 3 new cool cards for it. The new Rigged Fair game is a pretty cool way for you to get a ton of card draw. The Occult Conjurer is a very nice minion with which you can flood the board quite early, and the Sage Seer of the Dark Moon Fair is also pretty insane, since it's basically an instant card draw instead of waiting for your Alunette to draw you, which a lot of the times ended in you getting fatigued. Other than that, the deck is pretty standard. You got your Cabal lackeys for some cheating secrets, as well as your Kirentor Mage, which does the same. You have plenty of cool secrets where you could be creative with. A lot of people use only 1 counterspell and 2 flame wards if they're meeting too much demon hunters or aggro druids or odd paladins, but if you're meeting too many priests and stuff like that, counterspell might be the better choice for you. This particular version is also running the Forgotten Torch, but it's not really essential and you can swap it out for another secret or for another occult. The deck is not expensive at all, since it's only running 1 single legendary, and if you don't have it, you can just as well switch it out for an Alunette, if you had that from the past expansions. Aside from that, it has a few epics, in the form of Rigged Fair game, from which you can only run 1 copy of, honestly, and also Occult is only a 1 copy of, and so is Ice Block, so I guess it's not that expensive at all. It's a really good deck, and it has a lot of tempo, and especially if you're starting first and you have a decent enough hand, you can do quite a lot of damage and be very disruptive for your opponent.
Isn't that right, Lucy?
If you're going second, you can still tempo out quite a lot, but it's a bit harder. Sadly, HS Premium doesn't offer matchups for Wild, but from the stats I can see, I can tell you that probably Odd Paladin is not gonna be too great for you, and Highlander Priest can also feel pretty bad. So let's jump on to the mulligan. If you're going first, you will want your Cabal lackey, and it's gonna be pretty good for you if you have Rigged Game for it as well, since you're basically always going to be drawing 3 cards for 1 mana, which is frickin' insane. Mad Scientist is always gonna be a good keep, Arcanologist as well, and depending on the class you're playing against, Netherwing Portal can be a pretty good cheated out 4-drop. If you're against a faster deck, of course Flame Ward will be important, and also keeping Kirentor Mage is usually a good idea too. Try not to overkeep Arcane Flak Mage, cause usually you want to be playing that card a little bit later in the game where you can actually kind of utilize it. Reach cards like Fireball, Cloud Prince, and Fire Torch are never a good idea for you to keep. When you're starting second, you're free to keep the same cards you keep when you're starting first, but here you can also keep your Occult and your Cabal Crystal Runner, because usually you are gonna be able to play it for 2 mana as soon as turn 3 or 4. Again, don't try to overkeep your reach cards, as well as the Sage. Is the deck worth crafting? I really think it is. Secret Mage is always gonna be a good archetype in Wild, and I don't see a way where they can nerf it out of the game, unless they print some new Secret Destruction cards, but I think that is highly unlikely. Right now, Secret Mage is the best performing archetype with 3 different alterations of it, each with 60+ win rate from Diamond to Legend, so you tell me, definitely worth the craft. Another good deck for Mage would be the Highlander Secret Mage, which is very fast and it curves out, capping at 6 mana, so it's a pretty fast deck again. There are just so many good Secret Mage cards out there that you can actually make a Highlander deck out of it, and it works pretty well too, but it's a lot more expensive obviously. Next up, let's talk about Rest Priest. And I know what you're thinking, and yes, it's disgusting, but it's actually enjoyable playing it. It's a very high rolly deck, and no, it's not slow at all, especially if you curve out and you flood the board with huge dudes as soon as turn 5 or 6. The new expansion gave it a couple of really cool tools, in the form of palm reading and the new Blood of Goon, which both serve excellent purpose in this huge deck. Usually the games pan out with you stalling out in the first 4 or 5 turns with your excellent board clear tools. And on turn 5 or 6, if you're lucky, you can play your Essence. You can also just tempo out Vargot on turn 3 or 4, and when your opponent kills it, you just res it over and over again, and on the next turn you're gonna have at least 2 Vargots. You have your Psychic Screams for when the going gets rough, and it's an excellent tool for you when the opponent tries to transform your board into some crappy minions, like sheep for instance. And you just Psychic Scream that board, and now your opponent has to deal with those sheep. And usually those decks are Highlander, so it really screws them over. You have your Diamond Spellstones for the huge refills, and you have a single copy of Mass Dispel for when the opponent tries to stop you with a taunt for instance. Again, no matchups, but from experience I can tell you that Highlander Priest can be quite the pain, especially if they curve out with their Polkit. Other than that, Secret Mage also could be a problem if they try to counterspell your big stuff, but all in all, you should be good against pretty much anything. Gibberling Druid can also be a problem, since they can really tempo out on you, and if you don't get your early game removals, you're pretty much screwed by turn 4 or 5. But all in all, you should be winning quite a lot with it. For the Mulligan, no matter if you're going first or second, Shadow Essence is always gonna be a good keep for you. When you're going first, Vargot will be nice, with Shadow Visions, Palm Reading, Spirit Lash, and depending on the matchup, you might want to keep a Penance or a Breath of the Infinite. But be careful. Try not to be keeping res cards unless you already have a res plan in your mind. When going second, again, depending on the matchup, you might want to be keeping some early board clear tools like Breath of the Infinite. Vargot again is gonna be a nice keep, Renew can be pretty helpful, Palm Reading again, and Shadow Visions can get you your cool spells from your deck. This is another very affordable wild deck, with just under 6,000 dust cost. Again, it does feel like it will stay in the game for a while, and I don't assume they're going to be nerfing anything for it anytime soon. So you can't go wrong with Res Priest nowadays. The other good priest deck in Wild right now is obviously Highlander Priest, but you already knew about that. It's been in the game ever since they reverted the Raza nerf, so you can get a lot of wins with that one, but it's very expensive. So again, that is why I am offering you Res Priest, which is actually even higher in the win rate percentile from Diamond to Legend. And the third deck on this list is gonna be Gibberling Druid. This is one of the fastest and cheapest wild decks out there right now, and it ends games as soon as turn 3 or 4. It's not really utilizing any of the new cards, aside from the new Wriggling Horror, which is actually not that important to be running in it anyway. You can even make this deck cheaper without running your Sir Finley, since it's not really that essential even though he's kinda cool, since it's a pretty solid 1-drop and it does give you a decent enough hero power most of the time, but you can definitely cut it. It's utilizing the huge pirate package, and it's also abusing the Mulligan, with which you can cheat out a really huge amount of stats as soon as turn 2, or even as soon as turn 1. We have patches here of course, since you know, pirates. And the new expansion actually gave us a tool with which you can actually reshuffle your patches back into your deck, but I think it's kind of a bait. You also have your Voracious Reader, with which you can draw a lot of cards, and you have plenty of buffs for your board, topping out with Savage Roar for the finisher, or for a good trade. This deck doesn't really have any serious bad matchups, so usually you should be able to win against anything basically. I guess Control Warriors would be a problem though. For the Mulligan, Embiggen is always gonna be a good keep for you, since with it you can cheat out huge pirates. Your 1-drop pirates aside from patches would also be a good keep, especially if you also have your Brigand in hand. Sir Finley would be nice, and Gibberling too if you have some Embiggens or other good spells for it early. Adorable Infestation can also be good, and with Voracious Reader you can refill your hand if you manage to play it fast enough. When you're going second, the situation is pretty much the same, but here Gibberling is a lot more important, and you can also keep Living Roots with it, so you can go wide faster. Obviously you never want to be keeping your Savage Roar in hand, and Power of the Wild can be kind of a bait for you too, since you want to get that later. Again, this is a very good deck with which you can climb to Legend pretty fast in Wild, and it costs only 3600 dust, so it's basically for free, and you can even bring it down to 2000 if you don't craft Sir Finley if you don't have it. Aside from that, you could see Jade Druid on ladder too, but it's a lot more expensive and it has a lot less win rate, so the choice is yours. From the classes I didn't mention, for Hunter you can go with Secret Hunter, with Beast Hunter, or even Highlander Hunter. For Demon Hunter, your best bet would be Odd Demon Hunter, but also Aggro and even Soul Demon Hunter are doing alright. for Paladin, obviously we have Out Paladin at the top, but Murloc Paladin is also doing good, and there is a Dude version Paladin, which is actually not Out 2, which is also fine. And even Shrivala Paladin is doing alright. For Rogue, you can go with Odd Rogue, or Kingsbane Rogue, or even Combo Rogue. For Shaman, you have plenty of choices, with Big One at the top, Evolve as well, and even. For Warlock, you have Discard Pain Warlock, Reno Lock, and also Cube Lock. And with Warrior, again you have ton of choices, and you can go for Enrage, Galakron, Pirate, Control, Odd Control, and so on. So that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed this new series, and let me know if you want me to keep up with the wild decks out there. I will be playing some of these wild decks tonight on stream on my Climb to Legend with an 11x bonus star for the first time this time, so I hope to see you there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.